Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bricks and Dragons. Today we are looking at the Carrack Light Cruiser. Um, so this comes from some of the expanded universe as well as in the Imperial source book. Um, Everything I've got here, I believe, is out of the second edition. I know the wording is itself, so um, here we go. We'll kind of read through this and we'll see what we got here. The Carrack class light cruiser is an old yet reliable ship from the Imperial fleet. Is the Demorian Manufacturing Corporation's Carrack class light cruiser. The vessel's 10 turbo laser batteries allow the Carrack to engage large opponents with a reasonable chance of success. Backing up the heavy guns are a number of smaller lasers or laser cannons for point defense against starfighters and missiles. Refitted vessels can or also have been equipped with tractor beam projectors. Layered bulkheads and compartmentalization combined with a unique modular life support system assures maximum crew survivability in case of hull breakage. Um, On numerous occasions, Imperial salvage craft have retrieved Carrack debris and found live crew members on board. The bulkheads also lend strength to the hull, allowing the Carrack to survive an attack that would destroy a similarly sized vessel. Compartmentalizing does have one major drawback, though. Such a defense system takes up an inordinate amount of space. As a result, the Carrack class is one of the largest light cruisers not equipped with internal hangar bays. Instead, each Carrack class carries 4 TIE recon starfighters docked on external racks. These small ships are used for courier missions and scouting duties. To compensate for the lack of starfighter support, Carrack cruisers are equipped with powerful engines that make them among the fastest of the Empire's capital ships. Current doctrine teams these cruisers with smaller vessels and assign them on patrol duty in pacified or semi-pacified sectors. They also serve as personal transports for important planetary governors and moffs. So when we look at like what they did in Star Wars Rebels, we had a modified shoot. Now I can't think of the name of the original vessel, but we had a military light transport. Okay, and it actually had 4 different docking bays there for TIE fighters. Um, Really, the same thing here. You could probably put any 4 on there that you want, but typically it would be um, TIE Recon starfighters. So, in that regard, this was the original idea for that design that came out later. Um, Not saying you couldn't use these independently or maybe as I would say in a typical fleet, maybe you would have 4 of these. Um, More on the outside, maybe a slower craft in the middle, say like an older Star Destroyer or um, my mind's not working here very well tonight. Um, Essentially, the Star Destroyer used during the Clone Wars, and like I said, my mind is not working very well here tonight. Um, you could take some older craft, throw a couple of these out here to help augment them and that. Um, when you go through like the Imperial source book, they really talk about most fleets are not just comprised of Star Destroyers or whatever. It is a big mixing of different types of ships, much like what modern navies do today. So, when we look at this, we have this is definitely an Imperial ship. This comes from the Imperial source book, and that's roughly where I got it from. Let's see. So this is a light cruiser. It's a capital scale ship. So if you're playing the game and you understand how that differs from starfighter or from fighter scale, starfighter scale or whatever, it does add damage. It does add defense, but it also takes away on the ability to shoot smaller objects. Dungeons and Dragons had done the same thing when you're talking about a smaller object trying to hit a bigger object. The smaller object has an easier chance, does a little less damage, but it has an easier chance to hit it. The bigger object does more damage to a smaller object, you know, but it is also harder to hit. Uh, they did that in I think third and 3.5 edition. It's not really in there so much in the fifth edition that I remember, but it is in there. They did that for one edition. Okay, so we are at the length of 350 meters. We have a crew of 1,007. We have 85 gunners. We can have a skeleton crew of 500. Remember, when we look at the differences between genres here, and I'll say it in that regard between like a Star Trek and a Star Wars, um, so much of the ship is automated. There is a reasoning why we do not automate the ships in Star Wars. They had tried doing that, and unfortunately, what they had found was it was easier for pirates to come in and take over military vessels. Um, so, in their lore, looking at when West End Games and George Lucas and them were looking at how Star Trek runs, and it really was that kind of a back and forth. It is easier for someone to take over a ship that can be run entirely by computer in the background. So by that design, they want to make sure that that can't happen so easily on these ships. So they take more of a hands-on approach. You need to have these bigger crews. Not saying you couldn't put computers in there and make it that way. They do have ships that are out there like that, but they are a little bit more susceptible to having pirates overrun them if they know how to take care of that. Okay, so we can have 142 troopers, passengers, typically they're troops. We can carry about 3,500 metric tons of cargo. Now, on a ship like this, it might be it's going to be more your foodstuffs and stuff like that, but they might have some space left over, maybe 3,000 tons of all your foodstuffs and everything you're going to need, but maybe 500 metric tons saved off to the side because if they are doing patrols and if they confiscate illegal cargo, something like that, they can do that with. They have room to put it. All right, so we can actually have consumables for a year. So we can be out here on our own for a year patrolling. Of course, because this belongs to the Empire, it's not readily available for sale. We do have a hyperdrive of times 1, a backup hyperdrive of times 12. There is a nav computer, a maneuverability of 2D, so not the best but not the greatest. It's pretty much on par. 2D is pretty much your standard. Space is an 8, so this is actually doing pretty good. Now, what we don't have here, and I don't have listed, is an atmosphere. These are ships that, for the most part, kind of like in a Star Trek sense, are really going to be out in space. These are not very well meant to come onto a planet. If they are, it's not really for flying, it's just to land and go from there. Typically, a ship like this, much like your Star Destroyers and everything else, they are going to get resupplied at a space station out in space and not really go down to a planet so much. They could, but not typically. We have a hull. This hull is just phenomenal at 5D. That is a very nice number, wonderful to see. And as the reading has had it, because the ship is compartmentalized. So you know, maybe not by the outside hull here or whatever, but if you're looking at the inside, you're going to have all these bulkheads or whatever that are just going to keep it nice and safe and secure. You can close it up. Something gets, blasted away, and the crew is nice and safe inside. All right, shields are 2D plus 2, so a little bit uh, above average. Sensors, our sensor packet here, we have passive sensors going out to about 3 kilometers. Our scan is about 5 kilometers. Our search is 10 kilometers. And our focus is about 400 meters. Like it was said before, we do have 10 heavy turbo laser cannons. So we have two in the front, three on the left, and three on the right, and then two in the back. When we look at a lot of the fighting in Star Wars, George Lucas had really looked at a lot of this much in the sense of a World War II out in space. So when we really look at a lot of the ships, it resembles that. We're going to do broadsides and stuff like that. The Star Destroyer itself, the design there, um, it does leave a little bit. Trying to say this in the best sense here. If you're going head on with another ship, you can't bring your the best proportion of your weapons to bear. You can bring a massive amount, but not really the best. Um, Likewise with the Carrack class light cruiser, you're better off if you can actually have your turbo laser, or if you can broadside someone, because now you have three sets of turbo lasers instead of only two. Okay, so fire control of 1D. So our fire control is not very good. Um, for each turbo laser battery, you're looking at a crew of three people. So you're going to have one person for aiming, two people for probably reloading. I think he did a very a wonderfully good job, if I can speak correctly here. Um, when we were looking at episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and you were seeing the cannons and these big kind of power shells coming out. I think that is a very good imagination of what we are really looking at. You're going to have one person for aiming, two people for trying to reload this thing. Um, I think that works out very well. And these are essentially power canisters or whatever um, kind of deals. Okay, so damage. We have 7D for damage, so that's pretty substantial here. Whatever you're hitting is most likely going to be taking a little bit of a punch. We do have 20 laser cannons, 5 in the front, 5 left, 5 right, and 5 in the back. So any starfighter that is trying to come across it is going to be taking some fire. The good news for anyone that's coming across it is, it's got a fire control of 3D. This is a capital ship gunnery. So really, when you're shooting at a starfighter, it's going to be about a 1D if you're rolling it. So you lose a little bit of that. If you're shooting up against other craft, um, so if you're shooting at another capital class ship, you're going to have that 3D for your gunnery fire control. Um, and because this is at capital ship gunnery, or at capital scale here, from the looks of it, that means you're doing 2D damage to another capital scale ship. If you're shooting at a starfighter, it's going to be 4D damage. So it's on par with being our average cannon to another ship. It's just that everything's being done at capital scale here because we're imagining this going up against another capital scale ship here. All right, so we do have 5 tractor beam projectors. So we have 1 in the front, 2 in the left, 2 in the right. There are none behind us. And of course, we have a fire control of 2D. Um, so again, because this is all considered for capital scale, because we're running it off of our capital scale, um, if you're going for something smaller, it's not really the best, but otherwise, no, I don't know who did the model. I don't have any idea, but whoever did this, it's a very nice looking model for this figure. Um, all credit should go to them. Let's see. So for our tractor beam, it has a damage of 4D. Not really that it's doing damage, but if you're trying to evade it and everything else, you're going to have to kind of work against that. And of course, our starfighter complement is going to be 4 starfighters, 4 TIE style fighters that are uh, positioned onto this. Now, this could be a debate. I don't, it's one of those things of I look at this as a game. So keep this in mind. That's the way I'm looking at it. Um, as I bring this all the way up, if you can see the mouse, on the underside, we have this rack here. That is where I am imagining our starfighters are going to be. And then this right here is probably something to kind of help them, maybe. I'm not exactly certain what that could be. Um, just really have no clue. But in my imagination, this is where our starfighters are going. Now, keep in mind, this whole ship is 350 meters long. So that's quite a bit of length, trying to figure out exactly where 4 6 meter long starfighters are going to park themselves. I'm guessing it's on there. Now maybe I'm completely wrong. We do have this boxy part here. If we were to take this idea from the Imperial light transport, um, it is a possibility that we have almost like the suction tube kind of deals that would kind of come down, and then we could park two on each side. Um, Not really knowing, because this is all older stuff, well before we came out with Star Wars Rebels and all that. This is an older book. So exactly how they had imagined all this to work out, I don't fully know. Um, And even from there, if you were to say that somebody did a modification so that way they could throw some fighters in here, a little bit of hanger on each side or whatever, who knows? Just throwing it out there for my own little imagination. But it is always a ship that's interested me. Um, it is a smaller ship, but it's still a definite big ship. One of those things of the and it explains it very well here. We were doing compromises. We have really good survivability in big ship battles, but unfortunately, and I'm going to point it out here, when we're looking at our fire controls and stuff like that, because things were done the way they are, uh, maybe they weren't able to get very accurate fire control systems in here, um, because they reinforced other things. So that's my take on it. Whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know. It's always open for debate, and however anyone wants to view it is perfectly fine. It's just my take on it. Like I said, right or wrong. Um, but it's still a wonderful ship to have out there. Um, Typically, if I throw this out here, I might throw, who knows, maybe uh, a tie carrier or of some sort. I tell you, my mind is not working today. I've been busy outside all day, so my mind is getting fried. It shouldn't be, but it is. Um, because we do have actual carriers for tie fight or for tie fighters and that. So there's a good chance that maybe that they'd have one of those, and maybe another capital class ship is in there as well. So, but that's my viewpoint on it all. Hope you enjoy this series. We'll see you in tomorrow's video. Have a good day, and we'll see you in the next one.